Welcome back to the Dark Corner. Today's film is The Pit and the Pendulum. The Pit and the Pendulum is a 1961 horror film directed by Roger Corman, starring Vincent Price, Barbara Steele, John Kerr, and Luna Anders. The screenplay by Richard Matheson is loosely inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's 1842 short story of the same name. Set in 16th century Spain, the story is about a young Englishman who visits a forbidden castle to investigate his sister's mysterious death. After a series of horrific revelations, apparently ghostly appearances, and violent deaths, the young man becomes strapped to the titular torture device by his lunatic brother-in-law during the film's climactic sequence. Film was the second title in the popular series of Poe's adaptation, released by American International Pictures, the first having been Corman's House of Usher, released in the previous year. Like House, the film features widescreen cinematography by Floyd Crosby, sets designed by the art director Daniel Haler, and the film's score composed by Les Baxter. A critical and box office hit, Pit's success convinced AIP and Corman to continue adapting Poe's story for another 6 films, 5 of them starring Vincent Price, and the series ended in 1964 with the release of The Tomb of Ligeia. Film critic Tom Lucas, writer of Enzio Gastaldi, both have noted the film's strong influence on numerous subsequent Italian thrillers, from Mario Bava's The Whip and the Body to Dario Argento's The Deep Red in 1975. Stephen King has described one of Pitt's major shock sequences as being among the most important moments in post-1960 horror films. Pit and the Pendulum is set in 1547 Spain. Englishman Francis Bernard visits the castle that his brother-in-law, Nicholas, owns to investigate the mysterious disappearance of his sister. Nicholas is played by Vincent Price in this movie. Nicholas and his younger sister, Catherine, offer a vague explanation that Elizabeth died from a rare blood disorder 3 months earlier. So, The Pit and the Pendulum is kind of a funny, goofy movie. It's not supposed to be funny, but this is one of those cases where Vincent Price plays an over-the-top performance that it's almost too hysterical. Vincent Price is the head owner of the castle, because all these Corman movies have to have a castle in them, who married a woman who he thinks had a rare blood disease that caused her to die suddenly. Died of fright, they say. Vincent Price currently lives in this castle with his sister. The brother of Elizabeth, the unfortunately dear departed Elizabeth, comes to investigate her death because there shouldn't be a reason why she just died suddenly. This is unheard of. He investigates the castle, trying to find some sort of clue, but ultimately can't really find anything until one night. Vincent Price explains that the house is kind of haunted. Vincent Price believes that he is responsible for the death of Elizabeth. In this movie, he is not playing a villain. He is a very over-the-top, sympathetic husband who believes that his wife left him and in death hates him because she might have been buried alive and walled up in the walls of the castle itself. As the film progresses, it does appear that the house is actually haunted. The piano plays by itself, doors move without anybody touching them, and we discover that Mr. Vincent Price is the descendant of Spain's worst inquisitor. That's right, Vincent Price was in this movie related to a Inquisition inquisitor, and in this castle lies a torture room. Why he keeps it operational, nobody knows. But in this, we find out that Vincent Price's father was a cruel man who beat and stoned in wall his mother. That's right, he beat her, threw her into a little patch of wall, and bricked it up, leaving her to die. and he has vivid flashbacks and vivid nightmares and fears that he's going to turn out like his father, even though he's the sweetest man on this planet who genuinely thinks he's a monster inside, but nobody else sees that. When his wife passed, he was so unsure that she was dead. He wanted to keep her buried out so we can make sure, but apparently it's a tradition in the 1500s to have a royalty buried in the walls. The wife was buried in the walls as well, just like the mother. And he's so certain that the ghost of his wife is so mad at him that they unremove every brick to expose her coffin. They open up the casket, and there she is, screaming in agonizing loneliness as she was buried alive. Vincent Price faints in horror. Over the top faints. It appears he was right. She was alive, and they buried her alive. She was alive, I tell you, alive, and they buried her alive in the walls of this castle, where she screamed in terror. And the ghost appears to him, tormenting him. Ghost of Elizabeth haunts Vincent Price. Vincent Price doesn't know what to do. But it would turn out she's not dead. Vincent Price has a friend, a doctor friend, who comes to the castle to confirm that she did die, to confirm to the brother that she did die. But in all reality, this doctor friend was more of a lover to Elizabeth. That's right, Vincent Price is victim yet again to an adulterous wife. The adulterous wife faked her own death and is hiding in this castle for some reason, and is planning on escaping with the doctor friend. I don't know why they waited so long. She literally dies 3 months before the brother shows up, so why are you still? So let's talk about this movie now in a more casual. So again, Vincent Price is a victim of adultery. His wife is cheating on him behind his back, and it's funny in the sense that because Vincent Price is playing like an over-the-top, I mean, I don't want to say flamboyant, but like a theater kid flamboyant. Like he's just over, like he's a theater kid. That's the best way to describe it. And everybody else is almost stoic to the point of detriment. Everybody's stoic except for him. Once he finds out the truth that his wife is an adulteress and cheating on him with his friend, it unlocks a hidden memory. Why did his father lock his mother up? Because she too was cheating on him. It wasn't just because he's cruel. No, he was trying to punish her. So it unlocks the deep evil in Vincent Price, his father almost possessing his body. You must have revenge. So after Vincent Price has this midlife crisis and his identity change, he ties down his former friend to this table, and above him is a pendulum. I don't know how to pronounce the word. A giant knife on an arm that's slowly slicing down and down to his gut. Then, and just then, our brother friend, our sister, come into the rescue, and they kill Vincent Price. They push him over the cliff. He's no longer there. He's no longer Vincent Price. And they save the medical friend, and everybody is happy. Everybody except the adulterous wife. You see, in all this hubbub, she hid from Vincent Price to kind of to incite the ghostly appearance. She hid in the Iron Maiden, and the Iron Maiden locked in. When they all left the torture chamber, she was left behind in the Iron Maiden, and they bricked her up in the torture chamber, forever to be buried in the exact way she thought she would never be. Overall, I think The Pit and the Pendulum is kind of a funny, goofy story. It does have a very serious story to it, but the way it's told, it's more of a comedy to me. There are a couple good jokes here and there, and there's a good couple scares here and there too. The best part about this movie, I want to say, is when they unearth the dead wife and her skeleton is sitting there. It almost looks too real to be fake, and I gotta say, you gotta see it to believe it. So to talk about a little bit more of the film techniques for this movie, we're going to talk about color first. The color on this movie is very blue. We see a lot of ocean shots, blues and whites. There's a lot of blue lighting to really portray that cold loneliness feeling that Vincent is feeling, that everybody is feeling in the loss of our friend. Elizabeth was friends with most of these people. He was a sister to their brother. And then once it's revealed that Elizabeth is alive, we get more reds and oranges, treachery and danger, love. And then when Vincent Price is consumed by his father, we get blacks and a lot of reds and deeper blues. There's a lot of creepy imagery in the backgrounds of this, with hooded figures with glowing eyes, almost commanding Vincent Price to take his revenge. So when this movie came out, it was a smash hit. It made $2 million at the box office on a budget of $300,000. Compared to today's standard, that is insane. I also would like to point out that Vincent Price rocks one of those frilly neck things that you see in like Shakespearean times, and he pulls it off immaculately. He might be one of the only people I've ever seen who can wear one of those and pulls it off. Critically, this movie was also well received. People seem to really enjoy it. And that's I think that's saying a lot in 1961, especially with the fact that a lot of movies back then weren't horror movies. As you can see, this was kind of a cult movie with a low budget. So to be one of the bigger of the movies, that's saying something. Especially because like a couple years later in 1959, Ben-Hur came out, and that was the most expensive movie ever made, and it might still be to this day the most expensive movie ever made. The Pit and the Pendulum is streaming on Amazon. It also has a Arrow release. It is a beautiful transfer. If you would like to check it out, it is in color. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, talk about it, make some traction with this one. It's a good one. It's a good Halloween horror film, starring Vincent Price, of course, and directed by Roger Corman. This month has been a Vincent Price and Roger Corman spectacular. We will round it out next week with the infamous Madhouse, starring Vincent Price and Peter Cushing, another horror icon. To this day, the most expensive movie ever made. Peter Cushing is best known for his portrayals of characters like Grand Moff Tarkin and Van Helsing in the Hammer horror of Dracula. I, of course, have been Cheese Film. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the dark corner.